The Department of Homeland Security funding shutdown is over. The House today passed a Senate bill it could have passed almost a month ago, but for internal GOP squabbles that stalled that bill and many other pieces of legislation. Paralysis, we should observe, is now a worrisome hallmark of the disorganized House GOP majority. Now, it would be wrong to say the standoff over DHS funding was over nothing or that it was a result of standard partisan division. It was not. Democrats demanded changes to immigration enforcement tactics after the shooting deaths at the hands of federal agents of Renee Good and Alex Pretty in Minneapolis. The Trump administration, under mounting political pressure, made some administrative changes to those tactics. Democrats wanted those changes and other stiffer reforms written into law, and there the standoff began. And as it progressed, other things occurred. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, as an example, was fired. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons announced his departure. Gregory Bovino, Commander-at-Large of Customs and Border Patrol, retired. These three were the faces of immigration crackdowns in Minneapolis, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Democrats did not change immigration tactics through legislation, but personnel changed during this time of the shutdown. There were other changes as well. Hundreds of TSA agents quit for lack of predictable paychecks. You remember long lines at airports snarled spring break travel. The White House had to use executive orders to shift unspent federal funds around to pay some DHS employees, a tactic that might not have even been legal, but nobody really objected because it was a better alternative than relying on a dysfunctional Congress. To put some of this in starkly functional terms, my colleague Nikole Killion interviewed Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Kevin Lunday.
We have over 6,000 utility bills that have been unpaid because DHS is not funded. And so now we're starting to see electricity, water, natural gas, other services shut off that are impacting not only our operational units and bases where our people work, but starting to impact where people live.
Members of the Coast Guard going around with flashlights until the lights can be turned back on.
It seems like a horror movie, but it's actually happening. It's almost unbelievable.
Believe it. It happened. Now, mercifully, it's over. For more, we turn to Nikole Killion on Capitol Hill to tell us how it ended. Nikole.
Well, the reality, Major, is that this ended in the blink of an eye. And really, if you weren't paying attention to the House floor, you would have missed this entire vote happening because there wasn't a regular vote where you normally see that tally of lawmakers. Instead, this was done by a simple voice vote. Boom, boom, done. We looked up and the Department of Homeland Security was magically funded. Now, this, of course, comes after more than 70 days of funding lapse. And it really begs the question, why didn't the House act sooner? Because at the end of the day, what they ended up passing was this compromise bill that was passed in the Senate, similar fashion, by the way, not with all 100 senators, but early in the morning with just a few senators in the room through a process called unanimous consent where they just rushed it through. But this was a compromise measure that in essence funds the remainder of the Department of Homeland Security, things like FEMA, things like the Coast Guard, TSA. What it doesn't include is funding for immigration enforcement. That will be handled separately through a party line process known as reconciliation, where Republicans have crafted a longer term measure to fund those entities to the tune of some $70 billion over the next 3 years. So in the interim, the rest of DHS will be funded through the rest of the fiscal year, and then we'll have to start this process all over again in just a matter of months.
And Nikole, I also want to ask you about an important conversation you had with two members of the Louisiana Democratic delegation, Cleo Fields, Troy Carter. They are the sum total of the Louisiana Democratic delegation, about what the Supreme Court did yesterday and the implications for them. Take it away.
Yeah, that's right. And it's really notable because they represent the only two majority-minority districts in the state of Louisiana, which are at the center of this Supreme Court ruling, Louisiana versus Calais. So in essence, what occurred is that one of these lawmakers, in particular, Cleo Fields, his district was really at the center, at the heart of this case. And late today, we heard from the Louisiana Secretary of State, who has announced that House races races will be put on hold. You know, the primaries were due to start next month, and so those House races are going to be put on hold in light of this Supreme Court decision. Here's what Congressman Fields, as well as Congressman Troy Carter, told me about the Supreme Court's ruling Wednesday.
Look, I plan to defend the seat no matter what. But listen, I've defended the seat before. I mean, look, I've never served in this Congress without being under legal attack, for the constitutionality of my district. So this is nothing new to me.
The reality is this is much deeper and much further than Louisiana. This can impact up to 19 or 20 seats in the Congressional Black Caucus. It can impact school boards. It can impact city councils, legislative seats. This is, in fact, an explosive move to turn the clock back all the way pre-1965.
Now, both Congressman Carter and Congressman Fields told me that they were expecting early voting to get underway in their primaries this Saturday. But with this announcement from the Secretary of State, while other races in the state are expected to proceed, those House races will not due to this Supreme Court decision. So we will stay tuned as far as next steps. But as you heard both members tell me, they both intend to defend their seats and to keep trying to move forward in light of this Supreme Court decision, Major.
Quite a bit in flux. Nikole Killion, thank you very much.